We need a jolt of morale, and there's one guy that we turn to when we need that jolt of morale. That is the Chicago Cubs director of morale, Dom, the guy you ought to be following on Twitter at Dom_Frederick. Dom, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Riley. Thanks for having me again. It's great to talk to you all, and what a day yesterday was. It was something.
It was something. And going through your Twitter feed, the one thing that is jumping out at me is the personal stories that people are sharing in just a couple of sentences. My mom made sure I knew my team. We both cried today. Thank you, Theo, for giving my mom a world title 2 weeks before she passed away. All of these things, all of this emotion that is coming out of different people is really something to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even getting more DMs from people who are just simply sharing their stories, and I've been trying to motivate them to post on Twitter for more people to see. Yeah, it's been something. I mean, when you see the evolution of a franchise, when you see the change that happened before our eyes with some fans' favorite team in their lifetime, it's pretty incredible in the moments that touch, whether it be families, friends, whatever it may be. Something, and I think it's pretty cool that people are sharing their stories, whether it be they had a conversation with Theo here and there in passing, or they just remember this aspect of his era and how it touched a loved one, whatever it may be. It's really cool, and I think what made yesterday special, and Theo's run in general special, and something that we can never forget.
Very special. I kind of remember where I was when the news was announced that Theo was going to be coming on board. Do you remember that kind of moment? And did you believe in what was going to come next when you knew Theo was on board?
I think the biggest thing I felt, and obviously I was young at the time, the biggest thing that I felt was that it was a change of pace from where we were as an organization prior to him being hired. The fact that we were kind of in this archaic state with the Tribune Company, we didn't have the facilities up to par. We're still in the lovable loser phase. We had just gotten over the 2009 and 10 tough years, and for the most part, as a franchise, you didn't really know where you were going to go, and there was a lot of skepticism from fans in terms of what Theo could actually do for this lovable loser franchise. But for me, I felt like it was a change of pace and something that could make a huge difference. And as I talked about yesterday, there was this tangible confidence that came along with saying Theo Epstein was running your baseball franchise. And that's something that couldn't be taken away from Cubs fans. And I still feel the way that I do back then with that confidence, with, I don't know if swagger's the right word, but there's this tangible feeling that you have something that another team doesn't have.
I've got a lifelong friend who's a Boston Red Sox fan, comes from New England, lives and dies with all New England sports, in particular the Red Sox. And when that announcement was made that Theo was coming over, he called me right away and said, "Oh, man, you are in for some of the fun that we had."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, he's the best employee in Cubs history. He's maybe one of the best sports employees in Chicago sports history. I hate to say it. I mean, if you're taking players aside, when you're talking about the impact of people that, had so much to do with Chicago sports, winning in Chicago sports, all the jobs in the industry that he really created around the Cubs, I mean, me included. I'm someone who's benefited mightily from what Theo's done, and I'm never going to forget that. I'm not going to bite the hand that fed me and gave me the opportunity to speak to you right now, Joe. So I'm very thankful for that with everything that's gone on, the winning, the culture, the foundation that he built, the highs, the non-apologetic, I'm going for it, we're doing our thing. But at the same time, he took a lot of heat. He was open with the fans. He was open with the media. He was always self-aware with what was going on. You saw that yesterday in his press conference. And again, he was different. I know he mentioned it yesterday. I've been saying it for a while. He was different, and he said it in the quote. It's just different here, and that's why it made yesterday so special in his run. for the 9-10 years what it was.
Yeah, I want to give you some credit there, Dom. You've been saying, it's just different here for a long time, and I believe that rings true if you've been following it. And that was kind of the mantra from Theo yesterday, a couple times saying it's different here. Is he following you? Did you plant that in his brain? Do you know?
He's not following me, but I will say, and there aren't a lot of Cubs employees that want to admit it, there's a thing called burner accounts, Joe, and it's hard for me to keep track of them. Now, am I saying Theo has a burner account? I don't know, but there are some employees that I am sure do and just don't want to admit it. So it is important to understand that. And, if Theo did see what's different here, he's looking at the trees that I was posting the pictures of Wrigley, and he knows it. He said himself, it was pretty cool to hear that. And like I said before, it's just different here, Joe. It just is.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. It's got a different vibe to it, and even people who aren't fans and aren't from the area can recognize that. Now I got to ask you, because we see a lot of people. This is always going to prompt speculation all across the board. Theo's got a year left on his deal. He's decided to bag out now. One school of thought is, he's going to be leaving after next year anyway. Some big decisions need to be made. Why not have the guy who's going to be making them take over right now? I hear other people offering up that, he got to look at what Ricketts is going to do with this team, and he's just decided he doesn't want to be any part of that. You're kind of plugged into these guys and the whole aura. What are you thinking, and what are you hearing?
What I think is simply there are going to be changes. Do I think it's going to be vast changes, like all the 4 core players being gone? No, I don't. Because, A, the trades simply don't make sense right now, considering the years that some of these players came off of, and the fact that the economics of baseball has totally turned on its head. So we have no idea what's going to happen, what the market's going to be, who's going to spend, who's not going to spend. And when you look at it, are you trying to tell me that the Brewers are going to go out and retool their roster and spend big money, or the Cardinals are going to do that? They have already dropped off and cut some salary for guys that were, performing for them. So, listen, this team's on top of the NL Central. Granted, is it a total all-in? We're going in with the 5 guys and we're totally committed and we're going to run it up? Probably not, but that doesn't mean we can't supplement this roster one way or another. I think what's the most important thing is to take the emotion out of it. And I've said it before, is that when you have the 3 seasons that you have over the past 3 September and Octobers, whatever changes are made, am I going to be necessarily happy about it? No, because there's the emotional side of me that's going to be, man, that's too bad. I really like that player. But will I understand? Yes. Because, yes, there has to be some changes made. We've talked about it in the past. I've talked about it before. You need to add some more contact to this lineup. You need to diversify the lineup so you don't go in these total, droughts in terms of the offense. So, but at the same time, there's going to be so many people. So many players that are going to be non-tendered, declined club options that will be able to supplement this roster. There's no reason why this team can't go out and compete for another NL Central title and then go into the playoffs and we see what happens. So, yes, will there be changes? But do I think it's going to be a total rebuild drop-off? Absolutely not.
Looking ahead a bit, you've been saying for a while, and I agree with you, it's been Theo's League. He zigs when people zags. He saw things where people didn't, inequities in the market that people hadn't even thought about before. Theo's gone. Is Jed ready to fill the shoes? Can he do the same magic that Theo did?
It is Theo's League, Joe, and it will always be Theo's League. Thank you for supporting that. In terms of Jed, the biggest thing I think with Jed is that Jed has a very unique opportunity to not only build upon what Theo has done, but he's been with Theo the entire way, whether it be in San Diego, Boston, now here in Chicago, and he's been successful. They have been successful at each and every stop. So he's going to be able to use what Theo has done in terms of the infrastructure he's put in place when you're building a roster. But at the same time, Jed probably has his own ideas on what we should do as a franchise, and obviously he was under Theo, so Theo had the last call. But he can learn from the mistakes Theo made, whether it be the pitching infrastructure, going after like low tier, like safe arms in the draft, whether it be how we diversified the lineup. Granted, Jed had those decisions on his plate too, but it's a very unique opportunity to step back and see what went right, what went wrong, and then you have the keys to the car to move it forward. So I'm excited for Jed. I think it's a great opportunity. I think he is an extension of Theo, obviously, with his the collaborative nature they had together, working together. I'm excited for him, and we'll see. He has some really big decisions on his plate, but I trust what he can do. Is it going to be Jed's League right off the bat? Probably not, but that doesn't mean I'm not confident in what he can do for this franchise.
Will Jed have the same latitude and slack on the reins from the Ricketts that Theo did?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I would say off the bat, no, considering where we are economically in the recession and pandemic. But he will have all the opportunities to make every move that he needs to make. And that might not be, spending big in free agency right now. No, but he has the opportunity to supplement, like I talked about before. And the keys are in his hands. And I think Tom, for all the criticism he gets, and understandably so, I still support Tom. When you're taking everything else out of it, I support Tom and what he's done, and I think Tom does have the wherewithal to see that changes have to be made. Granted, there were some mistakes with not supplementing the roster a little bit more at times in terms of diversifying the lineup over the last two off seasons. There were some decisions that went wrong, but for the most part, Jed will have absolutely the opportunity to go about his business and do what he has to do, and we'll see who he brings in as the general manager. I hope it is someone new. I'd prefer it not to be a guy right from the core group of front office members that have been here for a while. Now, if you're talking about some new additions to the front office, then I'm cool with that, but I think it needs to be a new voice, someone who can come up with new ideas, whether it be in scouting, player development, or just overall functioning with the roster. So, again, I'm excited for Jed. I think he's going to have all the opportunities to make the decision that he needs to make, and I think it's going to go well.
I like the fact that, you say you're supporting Tom Ricketts, because Joe and I were talking about this off the air. When you look at what has been done to that organization since the Ricketts took over, the money that's been spent, the changes that have been made around the area, the culture that was changed, Theo Epstein didn't just all of a sudden, get on a bus and show up from Boston and go, I'm going to work here now. Someone had to bring him here. I find it hard to believe that the person behind all of those sorts of things now is just like, okay, I'm happy with us being mediocre crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's really tough. Listen, I think with the world we live in now, I think there are a lot of reasons for why someone doesn't like someone else in terms of political bias or whatever it may be. I'm just trying to look at it in a vacuum with what's actually gone on from a baseball and business perspective. They've spent so much money on this team throughout their tenure as a Cubs ownership group. And whether it be the renovations for the ball club, the renovations for the ballpark, the new spring training facility, all of these different types of things, which has been crucial to the development for this team. And if we didn't have those, then the team wouldn't have prospered like it has. Not to mention the fact they've spent big in free agency. They've had a massive payroll, so on and so forth. And to your point, it's very hard for me to believe that someone puts in all this work and then they're just going to say, oh, well, that's it. I think Tom, for a long time, has felt that we need to do a better job, whether it be developing, whether it be scouting. That really showed up with some holes in the roster over the last 3 years. And to Tom's credit, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but he probably was like, you know what, we need to take a step back, even though we are like going for it. For the fact that you have to be able to develop guys from the pitching side where we can't continue to spend on, 30-year-old free agents. It's really tough to stay competitive doing that. And Tom probably saw that, and that's probably many of the conversations we're having right now to supplement the roster. So, again, say what you want about Tom. I still support the guy. He brought Theo here. He brought Jed here. He pretty much brought Joe Madden here, David Ross. The whole gang set this all up for us to enjoy. And whatever your beliefs are outside the game, I understand. But the most important thing is that without Tom Ricketts, without Theo as well, none of this would happen. And you know what, Joe and Riley, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
One more before we let you go. Moving on from maybe Jed, but I want to talk about your new best friend, and that's this Cubs center fielder Ian Happ. You've now been on his podcast, The Compound, twice. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you on this show again, because I want you to have you on more than Ian Happ did. But
Thank you.
The Compound, the social media aspect of that, and having the marquee network, you Darvish, he has the big social media presence, and kind of having that extra utility from the Cubs front office to help them through this. Does that help in free agency for somebody like Trevor Bauer that wants to do other stuff outside of baseball? Do players look at that and see we have more options here in Chicago?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about players, again, I'm not a player. I didn't play in the minor leagues. I didn't play in the big leagues. I did play in college, which I feel gives me some sort of connection between Ian and the rest of Zach and Dakota's our relationship. Listen, they're pretty frank when we talk about it. I mean, they are motivated with things outside the game, and I think they see what's happening, even with very talented players like Ian. I think he knows, and he's very self-aware that it is very challenging to stay in this game. It's very challenging to continue to, year in, year out, show up, have great seasons, make your money. I mean, he's been frank with that when we've discussed, over the past, whatever it's been, month that we've been building our relationship, as you know, Joe. And to his credit, he wants to branch out. He wants to reach out. He wants to talk to fans. He wants to get their input. He wants to be inclusive to everyone's thoughts about the team, beliefs about the team, their stories, their experiences, whatever it may be. And to his credit, Zach, Dakota, and Ian, they're doing things that so many players would never do, and they wouldn't be open to discussing with random people. Giving me the opportunity to simply come on and chat, and then, simply build the relationship. I keep saying that. And to their credit, they're doing things that so many players would kind of, put their nose up and say, well, I'm better than this. I'm a big leaguer. I don't have to do this. They are down-to-earth guys, and what they're doing is awesome. They give a totally different perspective on the game. You hear it from a way that you don't think about so often because they're in it. They're in the daily grind, the challenges that the game presents, and I'm really appreciative for the opportunity to be on their podcast, to build the relationship, to grow with them, if you will, and hopefully in the future we can continue to do things. And they're morale athletes now, Joe, so listen, they're morale athletes for life, and that's a really big deal, and they know that.
It's big as I sip out of my bad news mug right now.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And look good doing it. He is the director of morale for the Chicago Cubs. You should be following on Twitter at Dom_Frederick. He is Dom. Thanks a lot for your time this morning. We always love hearing from you, and we needed an injection of morale this morning.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And whenever you need me back on, just let me know. God bless.
Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it.